Hi, today I wanted to show you how you can print your own designs on fabric using linoprint. If you've done linoprint before, you might already have a lot of the supplies that you need for this project. I'm going to show you that you don't need special fabric ink to achieve results that don't wash away in the wash. Today I'm using Caligo Safewash relief ink. It's an oil-based ink, but you can wash it up with soap and water after you've used it. Other oil-based inks require solvents to wash up afterwards. I'm using this one because I like to be able to use soap and water cleanup afterwards. At this point, I'd like to say that it's really important to note that you can't use water-based relief inks. They just won't work for this project. They will wash away in the wash. Today I'm printing these little bees that I have lino cut out of blue polymer lino. You can use this type of lino. You can use grey lino with the hessian on the back. You can use any type of relief printing substrate, so you could even use a wood block if you wanted to. And I'll be printing onto a canvas pouch, a blank canvas pouch. This is one I've already done. So this is what I'm going to be making today, one that's like this. Here's the blank one that I'll be printing on. This is just a cotton canvas blank that I got this online. You could make your own. You could print on a t-shirt, you could print on clothing, you could print on a tea towel, you could print on whatever kind of fabric you like. With your fabric choice, you could see that this one is a sort of a medium weave. It will print fine. As you can see, it's printed fine. You can see a little bit of the weave come up in the print. I don't mind that. It might bother some people. You can experiment on different types of fabric. The tighter the weave, the smoother your print will be. So on a t-shirt, for example, your print will be incredibly smooth. To roll out my ink, I've got this repurposed glass chopping board. Your ink needs to be rolled out on either a piece of perspex or a glass board like this one. Otherwise you won't get a nice smooth roll. Lots of printmakers use different methods for rolling out their ink. This is the one that I've been taught how to do. This is going to make the camera jiggle about a bit. Sorry about that, but there's not much I can do about it. This is the method I use to roll out my ink. I find that if I get too much ink on the roller, which is also called a brayer, if I get too much ink on it, I end up with too much ink. You know, if I get too much ink on it at the start, I end up with too much ink on it to print with. I'd much rather go a little bit at a time and then just end up with the right amount of ink on my brayer. I've seen some printmakers use this method. I mean, yes, ultimately it might be ever so slightly better, but I find that really difficult to do. As if it's a difficult way to hold my arm, and I'm all about making things easier on myself, because I get very tired very easily these days because of a health problem that I have. So I like to conserve my energy as much as possible in every aspect of my life, because I just get exhausted otherwise. Right, I think for me, this is a nice amount of ink for this particular job. I'm just going to take my first bee. I'm going to take the big one, and I'm going to roll some ink onto him or her. It's a her, isn't it? Or is it a him? Oh gosh, I honestly don't know. Are worker bees girls or boys? Oh, somebody tell me in the comments. Okay, thank you. A little bit more ink on my roller. Avoid that little hair that floated into my ink patch. I think that's one of Stanley George, Henry Parkhouse's hairs. Stanley George was, you might have seen him earlier in the video, was sitting on the table, interrupted. So I'm going to do my next bee. I'm just going to ink up all my bees with the right amount of ink. Now for fabric inking, for fabric printing, you need, I don't know, just ever so slightly a little bit more ink on your lino than you would perhaps put on your lino if you were printing on paper. It's because the ink gets pushed into the fibers of the item that you're printing, whereas with paper it sits on top and this sort of gets squashed into the fibers. So you do need just a smidge more ink than you normally would with printing on paper. Okay, so this is the wooden bits of my press. You might have already got some sort of press that you use for your projects, for your lino printing and your printing in general. So long as it's not a press where buttons or zips would get stuck rolling through perhaps, or there's a way that, so long as there's a way you can protect zippers and buttons, then you'll be able to use that press. You can also just press down using your hands. As previously mentioned, I find that too tiring after a while of doing, you know, more than one print. I find it wears me out much too quickly. So I have what's called a book press, a book nip. I've also got one of those cantilever presses made by there's a few different brands. There's Pookie Press, there's Woodzilla, there's Orange Squash Press. I've got a Lulu press. So they're the two pieces of wood with they squash. Hence the orange squash press, isn't it? That's what it's called. The orange squash brand is like literally you're squashing the two pieces of wood together. Some people use Sizzix presses, but use whatever you've got. And if you don't have a press, then the good old-fashioned squashing down with your hand, giving it a really good hard squash will get you a result. Also, I forgot to mention that you do need to pre-wash your fabric, especially if it's going to be fabric that you wear, because all new fabrics have a coating on them. There's a coating like in the fibers of the product itself, and that will wash away in the first wash. So you do need to pre-wash a t-shirt, especially because if you do not, your print will, some of your print will wash away in the first wash because it will actually be stuck on the coating of the fibers that was of the new fibers, the whatever chemical it is that they happen to use in new fibers. So that's really important, unless it's something like that, you know, that's not going to get washed. So for a pencil case like this, I haven't pre-washed this because I don't think that it's probably going to get washed that frequently, and when it does get washed, it's probably going to be so far into its life that the print will have really become one with the fibers by then. Right, so getting on with it. I take my big B and I put my big B here, and I'm going to take my middle-sized B and put my middle-sized B here, I'm going to take my little bee and I'm going to put my little bee there. Right, and then I'm going to put a piece of paper on top of that just to protect my press felt from getting any ink on it. I know they looked quite clean, but it's just a really good habit to get into. I'm going to make a little sandwich, and now that's ready to go in my press. Here is my aforementioned book nip. I don't know how old it is. It doesn't even have a brand name on it. It's a very basic model. It's antique, it's rusty. I don't care. It does a really, really good job for this. So I'm just going to pop that in there like this. If you can get your hands on one of these and you know you're planning on doing quite a lot of printing in your future, I love it. It's fantastic. It does have its limitations in its size of like paper or product that you could put in there, but I don't mind for this sort of these small projects. It's absolutely brilliant. I've just realised in the background you could probably hear my washing machine. I'm really sorry about that. It's very domestic. So this is why I was really careful about putting the zipper over the edge of the wood. If I put the zipper inside in between the two pieces of wood, the pressure from the press would have squashed the zipper and just rendered it useless. It would have broken it. It doesn't look like I'm putting much pressure on there, but that's a lot of pressure. That is, you'd hurt yourself if your finger was stuck in there. You could potentially actually crush a bone. So sorry if that made you feel icky. So there we go. It's really dead easy to use this, and that is why I love it. Out we come. So we just take everything out and see what we've got. Oh, there's one bee. Oh, there's the other bee. I hope you can see this. Oh, there you go. And there's the third bee. Okay. Oh, there we go. So now what I'm going to do with this is put it on my radiator to dry for at least 3 days. The ink needs to dry completely before you do the next step. So next steps are leave it to dry completely in a warm, dry place, and it can take up to a week for these sorts of oil bastings to dry. It's why the fabric ink was invented. It's got dryers in it that help the ink dry very, very quickly. But I found that particular ink to dry too fast, and it dries on the block and it dries on the roller and it dries on the plate before you've even finished one print. And that to me feels incredibly wasteful, and it's also incredibly frustrating. So that is why I've been searching for alternatives. And so yes, you do have to wait a long time for these to dry properly, but me personally, I'm not selling them at market or anything like that, so it's not a big deal for me, whereas maybe it would be if you were making inventory for market. So that's up for you to decide whether it's worth it for you, but I leave mine to dry on the radiator. You could leave that drying cupboard in the sunshine if you have it. I don't have sunshine. I live in the UK. We just don't really get those long, hot, warm, dry days that you get in some countries, like Australia, for example. So yes, needs to dry completely. Otherwise, it will smudge and ruin your job. And that's really, really sad when you've gotten this far in printing and you're really happy with the print and everything, and it's like a product, like a t-shirt. It's incredibly wasteful to mess it up at this point. So just be patient. Okay. Once it's dry completely, is you do need to heat set it. One way is to cover the print with baking paper and iron it with a hot iron for at least 10 minutes. I find this really boring. But if all you've got is an iron and you don't have a dryer, then you'll have to iron it. Yep, so use baking paper between the iron and the print. Otherwise you'll ruin your print. Don't ruin the print. But you do have to do it for a really long time. Be careful what kind of fabric you've used. So if you've used cotton, it can tolerate high temperatures for a long time. But if you've used a more, my brain keeps saying sensitive fabric, but that's not the word. But anyway, if you've used a more sensitive fabric, then use your brain. Don't melt it. Be careful. Try not to melt your fabric, but you do need to use quite a high heat for quite a long time, which is why these sort of things, this sort of printing is probably best on cotton and 100% cotton, linen, those sort of more organic fabrics, hemp, that can take higher temperatures. And synthetic, that was the word I was looking for. Synthetic. You don't want to use a really synthetic fabric, because you won't be able to heat set it properly. Personal favorite method for heat setting is to put it in a pillowcase or a wash bag and dry it in the dryer on the hot setting. I have 2 settings on my dryer, hot and not hot. So I use the hot setting and I do it for an hour, and this heat sets it beautifully, and I don't have to stand around ironing things or sit around. In my case, I don't do standing anymore. But yeah, sitting around ironing things for, hours at a time, if you've got quite a few things, ironing things is going to take a while. I imagine you could probably also use a heat press. Not a panini press, not a sandwich press, but like a craft heat press, a sublimation heat press. I imagine that would exert a lot of heat. Again, you'd need to use paper between, a heatproof paper between the plate and the ink to protect the ink from being, for sticking. It will stick to an iron or a heat plate like that. The ink will stick until it's completely heat set. So at the start of your heat press process, it would stick to the iron, which is why you need to use the paper. I imagine a heat plate would work. So if you've got one of those just lying about, go for that. But the dryer method's perfect. I put it in a wash bag to protect, in case at the very start of the drying process, in case it hits the walls of the dryer and smudges the print. That has happened. That is very upsetting, and it has ruined some of my early stuff. So don't be me. Put it in something so that it doesn't hit the walls of the dryer and smear the print at the very start. Wash care. You got to wash it at a cooler temperature. Never wash it at a really high temperature. So if you've got like a cotton t-shirt or a linen t-shirt or something like a linen shirt, and you think, oh, it's a white shirt, it can take a really hot temperature. It can take the hot temperature. You want to get it white and everything, but your print will suffer if you wash it too high. It won't wash away completely. It'll never wash away completely. Especially the black ink is never going to ever going to wash away completely. So if you've misprinted something, it's ruined. You can't salvage it. That ink is maybe if you washed it immediately, but I've tried and it's a lottery. Never wash it too hot. Always cooler, 30 degrees Celsius or below. Don't use optical brighteners in that particular wash load. Don't use in-wash stain powders. If you've got a stain on the shirt, use a spot spray. and then wash like normal without any additional stain removers in the wash, because it will fade your print a bit. Like I say, it'll never wash away completely, but if you want to keep your print as crisp and as dark for as long as possible, then taking care of it in the wash is going to be one way to do that. Your first wash is always going to take a tiny bit of darkness away from any of your prints, because it's the ink that's sitting on top of the fabric that that just hasn't incorporated into the fibers of the fabric. You always get a tiny bit of wash fade at the start of, like, after the first wash, but it's only tiny. It's it's only noticeable, but like, clothes you buy from the shop, from a retailer, they fade. So it's an acceptable thing that happens. If you're going to be selling these at market in some way, online or in person, give washing instructions with your products. Include washing instructions with your products, so that you don't get any angry messages from people, from your customers, after they've washed it and it's might have had a significant fade because they used they threw it in with the nappy wash or something like that. You've always got to think that people are going to do something silly. You've got to sort of do a lot of thinking for them. I love people. I love you all, but sometimes some people, if you don't tell them, they just don't know. They just don't know. So best to tell them. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this video helpful, please like it. If you want to watch more videos like this from me, please subscribe. This video, I made this video at the point where my account is so small that it's not monetized yet. I am hoping to grow my account, so a sub would be great. I need to have, a creator needs to have 500 subs before they can actually get paid. So yeah, that'd be really helpful. Be really kind if you could do that for me. So give it a thumbs up as well. Thank you. A like. It's very good for the algorithm. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you found it helpful. Okay,